Subscribe to Bisbo and press the bell icon. See boring news turn into enjoyable stories. Beef ban and the subsequent cow vigilantism, NRC, Citizenship Amendment Act, repeal of Article 370, hijab ban in educational institutions. All these policies seen as anti-Muslim were implemented in the Modi era. Yet not in 8 years has the BJP government seen this kind of outcry from Muslim nations. Official protests were lodged by India's Muslim neighbors, Middle Eastern and Far Eastern nations, with the notable exception of Bangladesh. Calls for a boycott of Indian goods led to them being taken off shelves across the Persian Gulf, embarrassing Indian Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, who at that very moment was on a trip to Qatar to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations. But Qatar's Deputy Emir Abdullah Al Thani cancelled the VIP lunch at the very last minute.
Sorry, sir. The Emir cannot meet you for medical reasons.
The incident that triggered the tsunami of outrage occurred on May 27th when Nupur Sharma, the national spokesperson of the BJP, made derogatory remarks about Prophet Mohamed and his wife Ayesha during a television debate. Sharma's statements went viral on social media. Naveen Jindal, head of BJP's Delhi media cell, tweeted similar derogatory comments in her support. Resultant criticisms from Indian citizens, journalists and right advocates were ignored until early June when hashtags expressing anger at Prime Minister Modi began trending on Twitter across the Arabic-speaking world. The Indian government had two choices: hit back at Muslim monarch-ruled countries which themselves have a terrible human rights track record, or simply diffuse tensions in order to salvage India's friendly relations with the Middle East. The Modi government evidently chose the latter and started to distance itself from the officials in question, suspending Nupur Sharma and expelling Naveen Jindal after initially trying to explain them away as fringe elements. But hardcore BJP supporters were livid. Why did a Hindu government bow to Muslim nations? The backing down was explained away with familiar noises: to protect India's 3.4 million NRI population in the Gulf, to safeguard their 50 billion worth of remittances to the country, and to ensure India's oil supply more strained now during the Ukraine war. But that is too simplistic. The truth is that the ground situation in 3 Arab countries, Qatar, Kuwait and Oman, have changed drastically to India's worry. And it is therefore not too surprising that Qatar has led the recent charge against India, because it seeks to blunt the influence of a divisive figure who has been living in their country for 2 decades, Yusuf al-Qaradawi, the theological guide of the extremist Muslim Brotherhood, who favors overthrowing the monarchs and replacing them with Islamic governments. It is for this reason Qatar seeks to be seen as a defender of Islam on the Arab street, a perception they enhanced by hosting the US-Taliban dialogue and even today maintains close ties with the Taliban leadership. Kuwait followed immediately with the same demand, as they too face the same challenges with respect to the Muslim Brotherhood. Expressly forbidden from any political activity in Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the Brotherhood has 3 members in the Kuwaiti parliament who are openly critical of India's policies. Therefore, its new emir, Sheikh al-Sabah, cannot be seen as soft, as can't the new Sultan of Oman, Haytham bin Tariq either, who is also trying to display his Islamic credentials over that of the Grand Mufti of Oman, Al-Khalili, a close associate of Al-Qaradawi. By keeping quiet on insults to Prophet Mohamed, the 3 GCC regimes would be ceding space to extremist outfits in their country, which is why India had to strategically backtrack and tacitly support them, as they too want to curb Islamic extremists. And also because they have all been supporting India in many ways on the terror front, politically and economically. Saudi Arabia deported Abu Jundal in 2018, the main conspirator of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, while the UAE deported Iqbal Kaskar, brother of international terrorist Dawood Ibrahim, and British national Christian Michael, the alleged middleman in the 3,600 crore Augusta Westland helicopter deal. In the Organization of Islamic Countries meeting in the UN, UAE and the Maldives joined hands to block Pakistan's attempt to corner India. We must take collective action against India for the rising Islamophobia, not without approval of all OIC foreign ministers.
Social media campaigns against Islam does not represent the feelings of 1.3 billion Indians.
So close is the relationship with the UAE that India was invited for the OIC meet in 2019 under UAE's chair. For the first time ever in 2018, Sharjah, a UAE emirate, even granted permission for the building of a Hindu temple. The Gulf Cooperation Council's support of India's stance on Kashmir has resulted in the issue being further downplayed in the OIC. This was publicly acknowledged by the Indian Prime Minister, who thanked the UAE and Bahrain just days after repealing Article 370.
For understanding that this is India's internal matter.
And then at Modi's request, sent a 34-member delegation of GCC businessmen who visited Jammu and Kashmir to explore investment opportunities. In the Muslim island nation of Maldives, when the former President Abdullah Yamin's Look China policy was reversed to India first, its new President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih banned anti-India protests by decree.
Khabardar, don't you dare look China.
On the economic front, Saudi and the UAE are increasing their investments in India, with the UAE being the only country that India has an FTA with. The ties have been so good that Prime Minister Modi has visited almost all Muslim countries, some several times, except, interestingly, Kuwait and Turkey. While on the one hand it caved in to Muslim monarchs, on the other it withstood critical remarks of the US.
The US is concerned human rights abuses, government, police.
By hitting back at the US about hate crimes against Indians.
We also take up human rights issues, especially when they pertain to our community.
Notwithstanding the bravado, the multiple FIRs filed against Nupur Sharma in different police stations of the country left many BJP supporters disappointed. She should not have been sacked. A warning would have been enough. Some felt India could have gone the way of France after they too faced a similar backlash from the Muslim world over an insult to Prophet Mohamed, where despite an armed attack on the publisher's office in 2015 which killed 12 and a later beheading of Samuel Paty, a middle school teacher, President Macron responded by projecting onto government buildings the very cartoons that created the uproar, and pledging France will always support the values of freedom of speech, expression and democracy. Muslim countries protested, French products were boycotted, but it all eventually died down as France was not dependent on Middle East oil. However, India is a more peaceful and multicultural society that believes in the coexistence of all gods, Sarva Dharma Sambhava. All religions are the same. Further, it lives in a more hostile neighborhood, and good relations with a 57-member OIC group may come in handy in the event of hostilities. However, the RSS has internally been debating on how it is now time to move away from Yuddha or Apman ki bhasha, or language of war and insult. The BJP is also being more circumspect, asking anyone speaking on behalf of the party to be mindful of its two guiding principles, Garib Kalyan and Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. This way, India will not become a subject of domestic political battle in the Arab world, the best way for the country to ensure its security. Grapevine has it that Nupur Sharma has become a shoo-in for MP in the next elections. But if BJP were to grant her that prize, then all the goodwill that Modi has earned from his effort may well be wasted. Bisbo's limerick. All's not what it seems in diplomatic ties. Mutual benefit is where the truth lies. By ceding ground, their goodwill abounds. In the long run, it will show why this move was wise. You will also find these sources listed in our video description section.